So folks, I just want to thank those of you who are on. We're inviting you to share the link, invite others on. We have already a number of our guests on. We have a new guest on this week. So she'll be first to share a story, and then we're going to hear from some of the other ones, a little more of their story, as well as some of the lessons learned and the solutions that they can share with others to avoid if they find themselves in a situation that they were in. So folks, I just want to thank you for this program as usual, joining us on radio, television, all the way, we say, from Grand Bahama in the north to Inago down there in the south. Those watching by cable 974, Facebook, YouTube, Zoom, whatever the means, WhatsApp line 433-6917, 433-6917. And I just want to let you know I have one or two books here that I have a couple of books I can give away. I don't know if someone able to come by the studio when we sign off at 5:15. One called Hope for Today's Family. Another one is called Hope for Troubled Times. So I got about at least 10 of these, and it's actually free. All right, and my WhatsApp 433-6917. In case you might not be able to come by the studio, but somehow you may be able to connect with me, you can get one of these books free. Hope for Today's Family and Hope for Troubled Times. Hope for Today's Family talk about the family, marriage God's way, parenting for success, Rockasan, becoming intimate allies, communicating with grace. Oh, wow, no excuse for abuse in the family. Whoa. And a number of other topics. But folks, so today I just want to thank you for coming on. I want to ask our technician, Pastor Williams, I sent you what's up? There's something I want you to play, a poem. Can you play it for me? Then I want to introduce Kendra. She want to share something. So Pastor Williams, can you go ahead and play that poem for me, please? Go ahead.
According to the World Health Organization, globally, it is estimated that up to 1 billion children ages 2 to 17 years old have experienced physical, sexual, or emotional abuse within the past year. However, what about the infants and toddlers who are under the age of 2, who cannot verbalize what is happening to them? My name is Poetess K. Higgs Moss, and the poem that you are about to hear is about an abused infant's cry for help. A, B, C, help me. Mama, mama, please don't leave me with the man who keeps hurting your baby. Mama, mama, please stay inside, 'cause when you leave, he takes me on naughty rides. Mama, mama, please don't forget what you see, the marks on my private and over my body. Mama, mama, please stand up. You questioned him before. Why did you stop? Mama, mama, my body is hurting out and inside. The pain, the deep sadness. Will I live or will I die? Mama, 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 please help me. This should not happen to your baby.
Folks, I just want to thank you into that, listening to that. So what I want to do now is invite my friend, we call her Ambassador Kenya Bow. Unmute your mic, Kenya.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, hi, everybody. It's great to be on. And I don't know if David, something else you want to say before I share on the event coming up.
No, no, you go ahead.
All right. So, I just wanted to let your listening audience know that this Friday, coming December 10th, which is International Human Rights Day, we will be holding a forum on rape awareness. And so we wanted to just take this opportunity to let the listening audience know about it. This is a area in the Bahamas that we don't often talk about and discuss. And sometimes under the term of gender-based violence, we don't sometimes tackle direct issues that are happening to people on a daily basis in our country. I know that we were in a season and at 1 year here in the Bahamas where, according to our per capita in the region, the Bahamas was actually number one for rape. And when I learned about the stats on that, I said, I heard Marion Bethel share this at an event. And when I heard that, I felt so alarmed by that. And I said, well, how is it that we don't hear more about it? And, oftentimes we would hear about cruise ships giving tourists warning in terms of to not stray too far from the cruise ships, and about it being unsafe in terms of on the island. And sometimes we hear the embassy give warnings to their citizens in terms of coming to the Bahamas. And sometimes we would look at it and we'd be like, we're not a violent people. Like, what was that warning about? And I think so many times things don't make it to the media as it pertains to the amount of rapes that occur in the country, and it's not talked about. It's still considered a bit of a taboo. And so we want to just raise the awareness as it pertains to rape. Dave Williams and I did a program in the prison with various offenders of rape, persons who had already been convicted. And there's some interesting information that we received out of that in terms of their view and their perspective. And then also we have had the opportunity, and even as this show will showcase today, we've had the opportunity to hear stories from persons who would have been victims or survivors and of rape in the Bahamas. And we're going to be sharing from that perspective as well. So this December 10th, rape awareness, and you would be able to get further information. We'll be on some of the radio shows this coming week as we share a bit more on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Kendra. So you folks who heard from Kendra Bodas, my partner, she also just recently did a program with a number of countries in the Caribbean, also out of Ghana, India, someplace else. She didn't mention that, but so we bless the Lord for her. Oh, you tell them about it, Kendra.
Yes, so also it is called the GPS Empower Women Summit. So it's still ongoing. Our second phase is complete. The third phase will be next year, April, which will be a global summit. But this event includes 6 countries. It's the Bahamas, Trinidad, Sri Lanka, India, Ghana, and Kenya. And what we're seeking to do with this is to map the similarities and differences between these 6 countries as it pertains to gender-based violence. So we want to see, do women or young girls in Africa experience some of the same things that we do here in the Caribbean or in Asia? And what are those things that are similar? What are those things that are different? And what can we do in a global effort to make a change as it pertains to violence against women and girls? And how can we get more men to become engaged in being allies with women in order to promote change?
Okay, so folks, I just want to thank you. You heard from Kendra. You can reach out to her. I'm sure she'll put her contacts in the chat, or you can simply touch base with me at 433-6917. That's my cell, as you know. Send me a WhatsApp. Folks, I just want to thank you for the show. I want to introduce a new guest, and then I'm going to allow Jackie to take it over from there. Our new guest, a young lady, I heard her testimony. She and I were on the Nahaja Black Show with Robin Lyons. And her name is, I knew her for a while. I met her a couple of years ago. Her name is Alicia Newton. She had a story posted on Facebook. And so the other station actually reached out to her. I read a story. So Alicia, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic share a little of your story, and then my co-host Jackie will take it over from there. Alicia, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I hope all is doing well. Mr. Williams, it's a pleasure seeing you again. It has been a while.
Yes.
And I'm very happy about the work that you're doing. Continue with it. It's really good.
Thanks.
I really appreciate persons like you who take the time to shine a light on issues that needs to be talked about.
Yes.
When Mr. Williams invited me to do the show, I was trying to decide which one of my circumstances should I talk about, because not only I am a rape survivor, I've been molested as well and domestically abused. And it was a journey for me from I was younger and getting older, all of these things that I went through. After listening to that poem that was played earlier, I think I want to talk about me being molested. I was 12 when it started, not too long after my father passed away. And it was a family friend that actually did this. This person was one of my little sister's godfathers. So he was really close with my mom, really close with my dad at the time before he died. So they were friends. And you wouldn't suspect that someone who you are comfortable with would do such things that they did. The problem was for me when my father was a big part of my life and I loved him. And when he passed away, it crushed me and I felt lost. I felt alone. I didn't know how to talk about what was going on. I started to be a little rebellious to my mom because I had so much anger inside. And here comes along my sister God's father, and he treated me as an equal. He talked to me as if we were on the same stage, that I could talk to him about anything. He could talk to me about anything. We were friends. That's how he treated me at 12 years old, as a friend. He was someone that I could have confided into. I could have tell him about all the things that were going on at home. And he would always take my side and say, yes, your mom was wrong for that, or your sisters were wrong for that. And it didn't start off right away, but it started off with him gaining my confidence, gaining my trust, and me being able to open up to him. And just one day during all of this talking and so forth, I had my back turned to him. And as I was talking, I turned around, and it's when I noticed he was masturbating in front of me. At that time, I was afraid. I got up to run out of the room where I was, because I was by his apartment. I got up to run out of his room and to try go home, and he stopped me. And he was like, why would you be so afraid of me? I'm your friend. I'm the only person who has your back. I'm the only person who listens to you. And I'm not going to hurt you and so forth. And he's like, this is my way of getting rid of my frustration. Your voice, it soothes me. So I listen to you when I do this to soothe my frustration with stuff that's going on in his life. Those were his words. And my 12-year-old mind, I'm like, what harm is this? It shouldn't be, he's just doing that on his own. He's not touching me whatsoever. What harm could this be? Little did I know how it would have escalated further along. So it went from him masturbating to the point where at one time he performed oral sex on me. I was about 14. At that time, he started giving me money, taking me on rides, buying me a bunch of things. And I was still so angry with my mom, so angry with my family, angry at the world, angry at God. And this is the only person. So I saw him as he was my refuge. And basically, it was a grooming thing that went on until I was 16. And this continued, and every time it escalated into something else that he wanted me to do for 4 years. And the thing is that particular experience, And it opened up a doorway for a lot of darkness into my life because I found myself with the anger and the hate that I had. I found my grades dropping in school. I started to develop this self-hatred towards myself from then. I started to alienate myself from my family. I wouldn't talk to my mom. I was acting a little rebellious. And a lot of people would say, oh, these are girls that are just being promiscuous or being fast. But the fact is, you don't know the story behind all of it. You're just seeing the out version. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It's not that they're fast, it's that there was somebody that took advantage of someone who knew no better and groomed them into what they want. And I mean, it was a crazy time for me. And it led to a lot of things into my life, me as I got older, putting myself in different circumstances and things that affected me in more ways than I even thought it ever would. And it started, like I said, it started that self-hatred that I had towards myself. I stopped caring for me. I stopped checking. I started to have the belief that this is all that I am worth, that no man would ever want anything else from me other than this. It put me in situations where persons that I trust had the opportunity to drug me and have their friends gang rape me and not finding about it 2 years later. It put me in a situation where, as I'm on a date with someone who I trust, and to find out when I get to the bottom of the cup of wine that I was drinking, there's a powdery substance and it was too late. By the time I tried to get out of the car, I couldn't even move. And then to waking up being parked in front of my house and being told to get out. It put me into a situation where I was in an 8-year abusive relationship. And all of these things that just piled up and piled up. And I was to a point where I was ready to give up. I was ready to end my life. I attempted suicide at least twice. I will not lie. I did. I tried twice to kill myself, but God said no. He said, it's not happening today. And it was a long road to get back here. It was a very long road. And I took a very, very desperate road to get to where I am. I called a friend. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm going to do. Here I am. I'm drinking every day from morning to night. That's the only way I could have functioned. It was the only way I could have sleep. I couldn't start my day without a cup of alcohol, something. I couldn't sleep without drinking something. And that's how I medicated myself to numb myself to not feel. I hated me. I felt like I was going crazy. My friend got some information, whereas he told me to just go to accident emergency and tell them that you feel like you're either going to harm yourself or someone else. And when I went there and I told the security, and they got one of the nurses to assist me, and they took me straight to the back into room 3, which is the room where they keep all of the patients that goes up to Sandilands. And I sat in that room basically for almost 48 hours. I was in there for 48 hours, sitting down, saw a doctor, they talked to me, and I told them I need help. I told them, this is the only course that I see that I can take, because there's nothing else I could do. If I stayed where I was, I would have killed myself. I would have attempted to kill myself, and I might have achieved it this time. I said I needed the help. So sitting there 48 hours, me one, determined, not moving, because I know I couldn't do it alone anymore. Finally, an ambulance came and they were able to carry me up by Sandilands. And in getting up there, that's why I learned about their drug rehabilitation program and for alcohol addiction program. And I decided that that's what I wanted to do. And I entered into that program. And for 6 months, slowly by surely, I got to learn to love me again. I got to find myself again. I found God, and I decided to live. And 2 years later, here I am now. I'm living, and I'm finding myself lately sharing my stories with other women and encouraging them, because this is what we needed. I didn't have this. And this is something that is needed. This conversation is needed. I didn't have anyone I thought I could have turned to, I could have talked to, I could share it with. But now this, I don't know where the courage came from. I have no idea. It was just one day, it was on my mind. I always do in my journaling. And I decided to share one of my journaling passages about something that happened in my prayer group. And from there, I just couldn't stop sharing. It went from sharing in my prayer group to eventually I started posting snippets of my story on Facebook. And now this opportunity is opening up. And it's only God. If it wasn't for God, it's God who's giving me this strength. It's God who is pushing me and telling me this is what needs to be done, giving me this voice, this courage, this boldness to just be open and talk about this. And I'm not a perfect person. I will not lie. I am not perfect.
No one is.
Boy, I did some things, because when I was bad, and I will not lie, I was bad. But my past circumstances, yes, it's a part of my story. And it was a journey that I am realizing now that I had to take, because it was meant for something greater.
Yes, that's a great place. That's a great place, because I just want to inject right here, and I'm going to hear a little bit more of your story, because it's this quote. I just want to get this in for you. You're talking about this story, and you're now to the point where you have hope, right? And you're using your story as a means to bless others. And this quote is written by, an unknown author, but it says, you can either allow the obstacle in your life to be the excuse for your failure, or make them the reason behind your success. So the obstacle that was in your way, look at those obstacles and said, as opposed to them making me being the reason behind my failure, hence you on this program, using whatever it was, whatever mess that has happened to you, saying that those obstacles will now be used as a means of hope and healing. So on that note, I want to welcome you to the show, Transforming Lives. And we heard a little bit about your story. We have some other ladies in the room that love the quote. Thank you so much. We have some other ladies in the rooms that right there want to share your story. And on this segment, because an hour goes by so quickly, it's already 30 minutes. On this segment, we want to talk about hope. And we're going to talk a little bit about pain, because I don't think we got all that pain out, but we want to talk about hope and healing, because there's some persons from the last show, they're on this show, and we want them to know that there's hope and healing. So we pause to ask you, before we go into this segment of the program, please, if you know what everyone needs to hear this program, male and female, because sometimes persons don't understand, appreciate that male have always been, there are males that have also been, the victim of abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, domestic abuse. So we want you to call your father, your mother, your sister, your friend, the pastor. A lot of pastors encounter this situation where they have to counsel persons. Call them in the room where we are talking with real people, with real stories, with real solutions. So that's where we are, real people. So Alicia, so glad to hear that story. So glad to hear about your journey of hope. And I'm going to allow, from that, and just based on what you have said and some of the guests have said, I want to ask this question. And it's twofold. Do you blame yourself, number one, and what you think you could have done differently, if anything? Do you blame yourself, or did you blame yourself? And what do you think? And I'm going to ask, I'm now going to open that up to all my guests that I'm welcome. I'm going to start with you, Alicia, but I welcome back to the show Miss Samantha Poydare, Miss LaShawn Robbins, and Miss Davinia Smith and Miss Lavita Thurston. Welcome back to the show. And I'll give all of you an opportunity to answer that very question. That's lingering on, talking about pain. Starting with you, Alicia.
All right, for me, I initially did blame myself, and that is why I had all that self-hatred towards me. I blamed myself so much for everything. I saw myself at fault. I would tell myself, there has to be something about you that would allow these different men to do these things to you, or see that you have to be weak or something. It has to be something. And it wasn't until I got the help and I saw therapy that my thought process changed on that whole thing, because now I realize, it wasn't me. It was the fact that there was something wrong with those individuals. There was something messed up in them, something screwed, that something was wrong with them, something that they needed to deal with. And I had to learn to give myself forgiveness, allow myself the space to grieve, allow myself to love me again. And when I look back at everything that happened, there are some things that I wish I had done different. With my molestation, I wish that I had reached out to someone. If I had just spoken to someone and said, this is what is happening, I think someone would have put a stop to it. Now that my mom and I have this great relationship now, I talk to her about things. We've talked about this, and she told me straight up, blank, you should have come to me, because she had no idea what was going on. Even
Wow.
with the things that happened even after, with the abuse and the rape and so forth, I never spoke up about it because I was ashamed. Who's going to believe me? I'm this girl who saw that my only way to take back my power was to use as much men as I wanted to. So who's going to believe me? The girl who deals with whoever she wants, whenever she wants, that someone would actually rape her.
How could she get raped? Yeah, like how
Yeah.
could it even be defined as rape if she's giving it a rape? Kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So, but
Wow.
that's what it was. And I felt ashamed to talk about it. But I think that if we had a platform like this back then for me, where I could have heard the stories from other women to get that strength, that courage to speak up, then just maybe at that time, I may have been able to speak up about something.
Wow. Great point. Strength and courage, hearing the stories, and hence we have 3 other ladies on here giving you strength, support, and so many persons in the Zoom room. I just see the feedback saying strong, courageous woman. So kudos to you. So let's go on to the next person, Ms. Samantha Portier, and then LaShawn and Davinia in that order, and then Ms. Thurston, Lavita, sorry. What's your view on it? Ms. Samantha, are you there? I don't know if we have Ms. Samantha. Okay, I see Ms. LaShawn. Ms. LaShawn, I can see you can unmute your mic. Maybe she's talking. And all right, Ms. LaShawn is there. The beautiful Ms. LaShawn. What do you say about that?
I 100% agree with Ms. Alicia. It's such you look back at it, and there are moments when you do blame yourself because you could have said something, but then as time go on and you do get help, you realize that it wasn't your fault. This was something someone did to you. They made you you were a victim. And so I agree with everything she said. It's exactly as she said it.
All right. What about you? No, you started to say something. I just wanted. You were through?
No.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm looking to see if anyone else. What about Miss Alicia? Alicia just spoke with you. That was LaShawn. Miss Davinia, are you there? Or Miss Samantha, are you there?
I don't think they're on.
Okay, I think so. Miss Lavita, I can see Miss Lavita Thurston is here. Miss Thurston, what's your view?
Yes, well, at first I used to blame myself because, good afternoon, everyone, sorry. At first I blamed myself because I used to say, because I placed myself in the situation to be abused, to be raped, and for my abusers to do what they did to me. But I think it was on the same show that person's, I think it was you, host, that told me that I am not to blame
Thank you.
because I can't make anybody rape me or I can't make anyone abuse me. But I had a different look on it because I was saying if I had not gone in the area or the place where I went, those things wouldn't have happened to me. But like you say, you can't make someone do something to you because you in the place where they are. You understand?
Absolutely.
And so even being a child, being raped by a grown adult, a grown man, he should have known better. I was a child, 15.
Yes.
And if you had
Right.
seen me then, I'm fluffy now, but as a child growing up, I was so thin, you know, I was
Right.
so thin. And because of all that was deposited on me, made me hate myself. I tried to kill myself many times. I ended up in silence, had several nervous breakdowns. I just didn't want to be here. But God kept me that I didn't let go. And even getting
to God be the glory.
Amen. Even getting into
Yes.
separate abusive relationship, one after the other, just a year apart. You know, I thought that this was it. Each time I got beat, each time I got raped, I've never seen a human being been raped as much time as I have been. But
wow, that's a lot of
through it
pain.
all,
Right.
through it all, God kept me. God strengthened me. God
Yes.
encouraged me. God brought me through with that. Now, I wrote a book about my pain, named From Abuse to Glory. And now I
Right.
am doing the things that God had planned for my life. I am now
Amen.
standing in the gap for women who are now going through this abuse. And not
Wow.
even women, you have some men being abused also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
I
that's why I told you to come
realized
to the
that,
radio. Yes.
yes,
Absolutely.
I
And
realized that
sometimes
my
it's even
abuse
worse for
was
them.
rape.
Yes.
My
Okay.
abusers also, they was abused. So
Yes.
I don't blame
Well, I have a
myself
question
anymore.
here about that. Yes. That's a very good one because that's one of my questions. That's one of your people in my script. But I want to move from there before I talk about abused children being abused and whether you're aware of that. And so since we're there, let's just stick there just a little bit longer. Since you're aware of that, they said that a lot of times, you know, very often, persons who are being abused eventually become abusers themselves. Are you aware of that? And if you are aware of that, what steps have you taken or are you taking to ensure that you do not repeat, that you break that pattern? All right. What steps are you taking? You're being abused. They're saying either the ones, sometimes the ones who are victims go on to be, you know, victimize others. So how, are you aware of it? Have you ever heard it? And if you've heard it, what steps are you taking? So let's start with, since we started with Ms. Alicia. Ms. Alicia, you want to take that one on?
Sure. I've heard that phrase before, that persons who are abused become abusers. I'm a little, I call BS on that sometimes because my thing is, for me, I don't want someone else to feel that pain that I felt. I don't want someone else to go through what I went through. So I try to do everything as different as possible. I know I felt when I was younger, I was angry, I was upset, I felt unloved. And so with my nieces and nephews, I pour all the love I can into them. I'm the favorite auntie because they know Auntie Lisa will always listen. You know?
Right.
Even in my adult life now, I try to do things differently. I do the opposite. Even if I don't want to do it, I do the opposite of it. I would say a kind word before I say something to hurt you. If
Wow.
you upset me about something, I will walk away before I even think about trying to hit you. If I have a
Interesting.
disagreement with somebody, if we can't solve that right then and there, we go our separate ways and we part. Do the opposite. I don't want to, I don't want to inflict on somebody that was inflicted on me. Never.
Interesting. Interesting. And we're right back to our opening statement. You can decide what you do with those experiences, the power of choice. All right. So who is next in line? Ms. LaShawn, I think, Ms. LaShawn, what are your views on that?
I think that it's possible that persons who have experienced abuse can exhibit those same things that have happened to them. It's, for me, it's not that I would never want to have someone experience what I've experienced, but I know that because of what I've experienced, the first time that I've ever had sex with somebody that I wanted to have sex with, that I willingly 100% wanted to, was my husband, right?
Wow.
But before that, my vision of love and sexuality was so skewed by my experience that
Wow.
because I didn't want to disappoint a person, I may end up having sex with them. And if a person doesn't have the self-control to deal with whatever that abuse attached to them, because if we talk about the spirituality or how sex is a spiritual act, then I have to understand that when that abuse happened to me, that was never God's intention. So when that happened to me, that attached other things to my life and the way that I viewed love and viewed sex and viewed someone wanting you in a way that they shouldn't. And so, you know, like I said, the first time I ever had sex with someone I wanted to was my husband. And that was when I was maybe like 18 years old. But before that, all my experiences were, yes, I may have been with somebody, but the first time we did it, I didn't necessarily want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
just under pressure. I mean,
it was under pressure. And so,
yeah, you that's loaded. You said a lot of loaded stuff there.
Yeah, because of pressure. Yeah. And if that could have happened to me because of my experience, and it's no excuse to a person becoming a predator, but
yes,
you know, if they don't have the tools necessary, if they don't have the
awareness,
spiritual backing,
the awareness,
they don't have the awareness. If they're going from their place of hurt and not realizing that that trauma causing their hurt to act in a certain way that's unacceptable, then we'll have the cycle continuing. That's like you growing up around persons of, like, who are alcoholics. More than likely, because of your environment, you may drink alcohol. You know, there's very few persons who can look at it and say, well, I don't want to do it because I've seen what it did. You know? So I could see where it's definitely possible.
A challenge. Great point. I mean, you brought the spiritual connection, deep point there. You know, sex was designed, God has the parameters for that. God-driven. Someone is coming. I don't think society. Okay, I see something coming in the chat, and we're going to read that in a moment and give you an opportunity because I can see time winding down. I'm going to let Ms. Thurston answer that, and then I'm going to ask one other question. I can't close without this one, and then I'm going to go in the Zoom room. Okay, so please hang tight with your questions. Let me hear Ms. Thurston. Could you answer that same one?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I'm looking at my notes and I'm trying to remember the question that she asked, answered also. So I asked you to repeat that question. So let's go on to our next question. All right, in the interest of time. So invisible, if there's such thing, and I'm going to put invisible in quotes. And I want the men in the room to really hear this question. And I want us to really talk about this. We talk about that grooming, right? There are some men that would not, and I know that we have possibly children could be listening to this show. So I'm going to try to wrap it up in a certain context. There are some men that might not go to the whole extent to have a sexual intercourse relationship with children. They would forbid that. They would say, oh no, I wouldn't go to that extent. However, they do all the fondling and all the touching. What is your view in terms, because there are children who have been touched by adults in ways, in sexual ways, and just that very touch has left that spirit of being violated and being raped. Tell me your view on that in terms of that invisible mark that could be left on a child. No, you might not see the scars, all the things that they look for physical rape, but somehow mentally that child has been, and spiritually that child has been raped. Let me hear your views. Anybody can jump in and speak to that. Anyone have a view on that? Whether you think it's possible for a child to feel like he or she has been raped by being touched and fondled in the inappropriate way. So none of my guests have any view. I see Kendra is still in the room. So my guests, anyone, go ahead.
To me, I was raped at the age of 15. And you remember in my story, I was saying how we were waiting in the car for one of my abusers. He went to get the drinks and he took so long, and the lady asked me to go and see what was happening, why he taking so long. And he started, when I went there, started to touch me, started to kiss upon my neck, and I started to get frustrated and I started to cry and I started to beg him, please don't do this again. At that moment, I believe I felt like it was happening again, even though he did not like pull me down and try to rip off my clothes or anything. It's still like I was being raped again. So even with the touching, it still plays on a child's mind. Not only a child, anybody. Anybody. You don't have to have been raped before for it to affect you. And it stays with you for a long time.
Forever. It's a part of your life.
You feel
joining.
Person, you dream touching you, wake up. You wakes up in sweats and it was a bad nightmare. So it does affect the mind. It affects you spiritually. And then these people, they attach, they have spiritual attachments. They leave something when they try to touch you. And so when you go through all these years with these spiritual attachments, you don't know how to really get rid of them because you haven't had an encounter with God as yet. But when you get that encounter with God, like with me many years later, after I would have been through the storm, been beaten to the ground, tried to kill myself, ended up on depression medication, couldn't sleep, couldn't cope, drink, addicted to alcohol, addicted to drugs, you name it. I tried to do myself right in because I got tired of people doing it to me. And so when God really sent an angel to me, I didn't recognize, but in my inner soul, I felt like something got to be different with this man. He wasn't somebody looking for something. He wasn't someone looking to abuse my body or to rape me, or you understand? And so
I understand.
I still
he saw you. He saw you. He saw the real you. There you go.
But I still didn't know how to act. I ran from him, and every time he tried to get close to talk to me, I would break off running until one time I couldn't run no more. He just grabbed me and hold me and he said, what happened? Why every time I'm talking to you, after a couple of minutes, you just breaks off running, crying and screaming. And then I told him what had happened to me. And he said to me, well, I'm not here to rape you. I'm not here to abuse you. I only want to love you. And I was like, whoa, to love me? Nobody loved me, you know? So this was a word that was so different, you know? And he kept at it and he kept at it and he never left. But I did many things to push him away so he could leave me alone. But God didn't have it that way. 22 years later, that
Wow.
angel is
He's
still
still with
married
you.
and still going strong.
Wow.
To God be the
What a
glory.
power.
Yes,
What a
he
powerful
spoils
story.
me.
A really powerful story. So in the interest of time, I know we have persons in the Zoom room. Thank you for hanging in with us and want to ask a few questions to our guests. So let me just, identify yourself. Let me know if you have a question for our guests. We have go right ahead.
Jackie, just before we continue, LaShawn and Kendra have their hand up.
Kendra, go right ahead, Kendra. I can't see her.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So I heard you when you asked the previous question. An awesome show today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say, just based on some of the responses that Dave and I would have gotten from the program that was held at the Bahamas Department of Corrections, it was about 25 male offenders who for violent crimes, and so the majority would have been rape. And one of the things that came out of it is that everybody does not view rape the same way. Although these men have all already been convicted, all of them still did not view what they did as rape.
Wow.
And so I think the awareness, even that your guests are sharing as they share their stories, is going to cause more people to think as it pertains to this. And one of the other points I want to make is that throughout the world, as I spoke about the previous project that we are doing, the GPS Summit, when we're mapping the similarities and differences that girls and women face throughout the world, there seems to be a common trend when it comes to the sexuality of the female child and the way that is viewed and perceived by men. And so from female genital mutilation, which is a big thing in the African and Asian countries, where they literally, they would cut a part of the clitoris in the young girls, to the point that for some, they can never again experience any sexual pleasure. Or in terms of sewing them together, that you cannot engage in intercourse until you can marry. Even something that we learned that was so, in some countries, a man can say that he can rape a young girl and he can go to the church and say that God said this girl would be his wife in a vision, and the church would hand him over to him. And so I think across the board, when it comes to girls, I think that there is a thought that people don't necessarily constitute it as sex, as rape, or that they're doing harm, but there is a sense of entitlement to the girl child.
Big one. Wow. That's a
and so
big one.
I think that this is where we have to continue to raise the awareness with shows and platforms such as this, to be able to begin to educate and also empower our women and our girls.
Wow. Powerful what you say. Powerful, well said, powerful, great contribution. Anyone else I agree, Ms. Higgs is saying, okay. Anyone else in our room have a question anyone has a question for our guests? I have lots of questions, but I'm trying to incorporate as many violations of it can be a look, a hug, a touch. Okay, that's Mr. Ben, always giving us good feedback. He's saying violation could be a hug, a touch, a look. It doesn't have to go all the way. And it's amazing. It's very interesting. You said of those offenders, they looked at what they had done differently. Some of them didn't term it as rape. So maybe that's a big rock problem there, something that we really need to walk away and address. And maybe start by talking to our boys, start in our homes and talking to our girls, like I said, about, touch. I don't know what all the secrecy is about, but very early we need to start introducing lessons about the right touch and the wrong touch. Age appropriate, just to give our children knowledge, because knowledge is power. And we want to make our children power. We want to empower them to make good decisions. Is there anyone else that has a question before I go on to my next question? Because I definitely want to engage you. Anyone on Facebook? We have, I guess, YouTube. Anyone else? Dave, I need you to check and see if there are any questions on Facebook for us, please. And I will move on in the interest of time to our next question. Intuition, a woman's intuition. Talk a little bit about what impact that experience, being raped, and that ability to trust yourself. Talk a little bit about what experience, what impact that had. Did it make you more trusting, less trusting of any and everything, or just less trusting in certain areas? How did it impact your intuition? I'm gonna start with Miss Alicia.
For me, I lost my whole ability to trust anyone. I felt as if I could not trust a soul, because the only thing is going to happen, I'm going to get hurt in the long run. So I would put a guard around myself, this wall, to not allow anyone in. Look here, my fiance, he had to work so hard to get through to me. It was hard.
Wow.
It was
so
hard.
That's big. You lose your bearing.
I lost.
What about you? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Anyone else, if they want to chime in? I wanted to, let me ask.
Okay, you lost your bearing. What about you, Mr. LaShawn Robbins? What about you in terms of your bearing, your intuition, your ability, you being able to set proper boundaries and all that for yourself?
I didn't learn about setting proper boundaries until I was much older. I didn't trust a lot of persons, but there was a part of me that was looking for a savior, looking for assistance, looking for help, screaming for it, but not screaming literally, and so that caused me to trust some that I shouldn't have. And again, it's all depending on how that person embraces your vulnerability, because there were some
good point.
But there was some person. You go ahead.
So no, I was just saying once you let, so there was some that you let in because you don't have any proper boundaries and you trusted too heavily, right? So no balance. So no balance. And then some that you should have let in, you kept out.
You're right. So there was just having to learn how to balance and how to now put proper boundaries that, number one, protect you, from becoming a victim again, because I was a child, so I didn't really know a lot about setting those boundaries. I didn't know, but because my vision of boundaries was already demolished,
polluted.
Things that shouldn't have even happened in the first place. So I know I didn't want it to happen again, but it did. So I don't know. And then it wasn't just them, but because now I'm opening myself for other persons with my trauma, I'm trusting people who I shouldn't trust. And it was chaotic. It was just, I don't know.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It took me a very long time to learn boundaries and to really trust in my intuition.
Wow. And your intuition, that's big. And I want to linger just a while, and then I'll let Miss Thurston end. I see we're over 5, so I'll end with her. That's big because that's your compass. And that's what people don't realize. If you're in the woods and you're searching, and if your compass isn't working correctly,
then how do you, because that's what the trauma does. The trauma does do a damage.
Yes.
So
And
how,
I-
how do you become recalibrated, you know? So it's hard to say that my tuition was on point because it wasn't. Sometimes I probably hit, a lot of times I missed. And that was just how it was. I had a very hard time knowing who to trust and not knowing, you know.
Good.
Okay,
Totally get you.
Sean, Jackie. Yes, I just need to sign off the radio. So just give me a few minutes. Folks, I just want to thank you, those of you listening on Global 99.5, Cable TV 974. You can continue to join us by Facebook, Transforming Lives page, or YouTube, Uplifting Men, Transforming Lives. I want to thank you for this wonderful afternoon. Our show today was talking about sexual abuse. You heard the stories of these young ladies. And so I encourage you to, as we end the show the way we always end it, reminding you that there's nothing more important than having a relationship with Jesus Christ, not your church, nor my church, not your denomination, nor my denomination. We're talking about a relationship with Jesus Christ. Dave Williams, Jackie Gardner, Transforming Lives on Global 99.5. Thanks.
Bye. All right, so Miss Thurston, we're about to end. We're down to our end, our closing questions. But Miss Thurston, what about you? Your intuition?
Well, for me, I lost everything. I didn't trust anyone. Even after my husband came in the picture, it took a while for me to start to be comfortable with him. But we talk about what happened, and he understood, and he said, if he feel like I'm taking on too much, he would not pressure me into anything. And so he understood where I was. But after I saw him being the gentleman, being a human, so loving, so caring, so humble, my trust turned into him being like a shining light. He was everything to me now. And so my trust turned into a need, me needing him. And so God had to move him totally out of the picture for like 2 months. And I realized I put all my trust in this man and forgot the God that brought him to me.
The gift to
and
you.
So, yeah, I cried my heart out to God, and I asked God to help me and to forgive me, because I put this man in the front of God. I put him in the front of everything. And so the day that made the 2 months, he said he was sitting on his bed and God told him to go back home to his wife who loved him. And so we talk about what went wrong. We talk about what we could have done, should have done, and the way forward. And so now God was transitioning us for the present time where we are now. And so
the time of hope.
I learned to trust people, and I learned to have a discerning spirit. I asked God to give me a discerning spirit so that I would always be protected from hurt, and I would not take on false hope. You understand? And so I'm at the place now where God has given me so much more. And I can now clearly see things. I'm not broken anymore, so I can see clear to determine whether this person is coming with a story or this person really truly needs help, needs my help. Because you have some situation, people say, oh, I had enough, I need your help, or I want your help. but they only want it for temporary. They want you
Right.
to give them what they're looking for or seeking for, and then they go right back to the same old, same old. So you have to have a discerning spirit to decipher whether it's true or it's false. So I'm good
Great
at
point.
this point.
Great point. Great point. We're gonna end with hope. The great thing about it is each of you ladies came to the podium, came to the show, came to the Zoom room with hope. You know, you spoke about Jesus being the change in your life. As the closing comment and as the closing question, statement, how did Jesus change your life? So just in a brief 1 or 2 sentences as we close, I'm going to start with you, Miss Alicia. I'm going to go then to you, Miss Roma, and then we'll end with you, Miss Thurston. How did Jesus change your life?
In accepting Jesus, I accepted his forgiveness. And doing that, I learned to forgive myself and to love myself. I learned that because God loves me, I should love myself as well.
Good
And it
point.
gave
Love.
me hope. Yes. And it gave me hope, faith that there is more to come. There's a greater future. Whatever happened to me in the past was meant for something good in the kingdom.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so very much. And thank you for sharing your story. Miss LaShawn?
So for me, remember when we were talking about the compass?
Correct.
My spirituality became my compass when I asked a pastor why all of these things had to happen to me. And he said, it's not God's will that I would have gone through that, but God could use it. So he was just like, hey, put purpose on it, you know? So
Wow.
that gave me
Wow.
a direction to say,
great advice.
I went through that. I can move forward. I can go through whatever I'm going through and I could still move forward. So it gave me a direction that no matter what I face, I can still move forward in life. I could walk in purpose. I can help somebody else. I can share my story when the time is right. And you know, that's been my center since I learned about Christ and accepted him, you know, for who he is. And I'm not a super spiritual person or a religious person rather, but I do believe that God has done a major work in recalibrating my compass. So
Wow.
even when I'm hurting, I feel sometimes still deal with the anxiety of the things that I would have gone through. It's still not as big as what he can do through it, you know? And so
Right.
that's been my compass through all my,
Great.
through my short 34 years on this earth.
Great last word. God is your compass. So we'll end it with you, Ms. Thurston. And once you've commented, I'll turn it back over to Dave. I want to just give us my closing comment. The fact that I hat off to all of you, the powerful testimonies, all the brave ladies who are willing to share those testimonies, and to you, the listeners, be ye changed by powerful words. Back over to you, Ms. Thurston, and then back over to you, the one and only Mr. Dave Williams. Ms. Thurston, your last comment, your closing word.
Well, as for Lavita Thurston, who came from being nothing to something, God worked a miracle in my life. He gave me new life. He gave me new hope. And like the old people say, experience is the best teacher. How can I talk to somebody about abuse or rape or anything if I've never been through it? Okay, so our testimony is to equip us so we can help others out there, so we could be our brothers and sisters keeper, so we can have knowledge to help God people for such a time as this. And I always just thank God for my abusers. You know why? Hadn't it been for them, I don't think I would have been in the work that I am doing now. I might have been doing something else. But because of what they did to me, it pushed me to want to help others. It pushed me to want to stand in the gap for people that are being abused. So I owe it all to God. I owe my life to him because I am fearfully and wonderfully made in his image. As you can see, I got married very slim, but I got very fluffy. And I just love myself. Back then, I did not love me. But now I love all of Lavita Thurston. To God be the glory.
So folks, I just want to say thanks to you, our guests, Alicia, LaShawn, Lavita. Just before I close out, anybody else on Zoom have any final words they want to offer? I'm going to pause. Anyone can just unmute your mic if there's words. Go ahead, somebody talking.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Blessings, grace, and peace to all of us who are listening, and to our precious sisters who are so courageous. But Brother Dave, I have to put a shift in here. We need to hear from the men. We really need to hear from the men. But we thank God for our courageous sisters who have seen fit to honor God, not being prideful. Very important. Not being prideful, but choosing to be an instrument in the hands of God in prevention and deliverance of others. Because we are living in a time when abusers is very close. And that's what makes it so serious and dangerous. They're close, they're close. You trust your child to go and be with your family, who's supposed to be loving, caring, and sharing. But they take advantage of the child, their family. So you got to understand, even when the family gives other people, the strangers, opportunities to minister to their children, they abuse them again. So what I'm saying is we have to pay attention to the seriousness of the subtlety as to how abuse take place. You got to be better watchers. You know how we like to allow people to babysit our children? We have to be better watchers over how we allow people to minister to our children. So I trust that the sisters would recognize the goodness of God, and that they would choose to always remember their change is in God, because that's the one who came to their rescue. So anytime anything comes up into their life pertaining to their past, let them be anchored in the fact that God is their change, and therefore they are victorious and triumphant over the past. Love you all, sisters. Appreciate you all very much. Give God the glory always. Hallelujah. Amen.
So I just want to say thanks to those of you listening in. It was a wonderful afternoon. I like how folks talked about, they acknowledged that Christ made the difference in their life. And don't worry, LaShawn, you don't have to be super spiritual. All of it is founded in your relationship with Christ. He's super spiritual for you. So you don't have to do nothing, just stay with him. But those of you on the Zoom again, you know, we say, stay with Christ. He has his way of working it out. He takes care of you, and everything is found in him. Thank you for tuning in, encouraging you. Same time, same station, transforming lives on Global 99.5. Every Sunday, 4 to 5. Dave Williams, Jackie Gardner. Have a wonderful afternoon.